Well, the 10th anniversary of the 9/11 attacks on the World Trade Center and the Pentagon have shifted focus squarely on the many unanswered questions that remain in the minds of many people around the world. Questions that by their very nature give rise to theories which suggest the whole truth is simply not being told. While many of us simply cannot believe that a government, people in power, would wreak such an atrocity on their own people, my guest John Bursill points to apparent evidence that 9/11 was an inside job and that at the very least the entire truth is not being told. G'day, John.
G'day, Tim. How are you?
I'm very well, thanks, mate. Thanks for coming on tonight. John, start off by telling us, how are you qualified to talk about such a massive cover-up surrounding the events of 9/11?
Okay, well, I'm not a structural engineer or a architect, but I am a licensed aircraft maintenance engineer, and I've been studying the subject now for about 5 years, and have made myself aware of all the relevant evidence and facts around the issue. Obviously, I'm a professional, so I have my credibility at stake, but really it's from a point of view of bringing information to others that I've made 9/11 my subject, just to make people aware of the reality that there are many unanswered questions, as you said.
So the ordinary person, just like me, I mean, I'd describe you as a conspiracy theorist. How does that term sit with you?
Well, not so well these days. Obviously, it became more and more obvious to me over the years that was the term that was used to denigrate what I was trying to do and what people that I've influenced and encouraged to do to spread information about unanswered questions. Now, the conspiracy theorist term really came out of the assassination of John F. Kennedy, which actually was found to be a conspiracy by the Congressional Review that was carried out about 10 years after the events. So most events that surround murder are conspiracies. So to have a conspiracy theory is one thing, but to have a conspiracy based on fact is another. And what we propose in the 9/11 Truth Movement, especially the architects and engineers of 9/11 Truth that I'm a member, we propose that people look at the evidence and then just see how they feel about the situation, and they'll find that the official story of 9/11 is a conspiracy theory, but it's not backed by the evidence. It's actually never really been proven to anyone that the official story is true, and actually we find that Osama bin Laden's not even wanted directly for 9/11 because the FBI say they don't have any hard evidence. We have numerous reports about the building collapses. The collapse of the Twin Towers fails to explain the collapse of the buildings. It only gets to the point just before they collapse. And the World Trade Center 7, the third tower investigation was carried out, contradicts earlier investigations, and also there's now 1,600 professionals, architects and engineers, including many structural engineers and people that work in high-level jobs actually building skyscrapers, that just find it unbelievable that these buildings can collapse the way they did, especially Building 7. So really what we're doing is we're looking at the facts and we're suggesting the story might be something we've been told, which is a conspiracy theory.
I'm not meaning to labour the point, but I'm curious to know why the term conspiracy theorist doesn't sit well with you. I know you've just said there that it's the connotations, I suppose, which are there to denigrate people who propose an alternative theory. But these are only theories at this stage. Nothing has been proven. So I'm curious to know why you're not out and proud to be a conspiracy theorist. Why doesn't it sit well with you?
Well, because of the connotations, really, the way it's been used to disrupt the search for facts. I mean, obviously, with a lot of media, I've done some good interviews lately that have been taken seriously, but earlier on in the campaign, you were treated as if you were someone that would be prone to questioning the landing of the moon, say, for instance, or some other things like aliens or these things that aren't backed by evidence, that are just someone's theory. Now, what we propose at the Architects and Engineers Group is based on physical evidence that is available, chemical evidence, testimonial evidence of people that were there that heard many, many explosions on the day. So what I'm really saying is that I prefer to be thought of as a conspiracy factualist. Fair enough, you can say that I've got some conspiracy theories, and if you want the big picture of what I think happened, I do have a theory about it. So I can accept that, but really what I'm trying to do here is ask questions and demand answers from governments that send us to war on behalf of these events. Yeah,
and look, and I actually have a great deal of respect for you, as you say, putting your professional reputation and your name on the line. You certainly don't hide behind, I want to remain anonymous, which so many people do. I guess the only question I've got about it is, why wouldn't you be proud of being a conspiracy theorist. I mean, these are theories that you're putting forward, and there are questions that you want answered. That aside, I'm curious for you to take us through some of these points. Now, I didn't even know that there was a World Trade Center Building 7 until I started doing reading about this over the past few days. Can you tell us about that Building 7 and why it's so key to what you're trying to say?
Well, the Building 7 event is really the reason that I got involved in 9/11, because I thought it was something that was very clear and very obvious that showed there was a story other than we were told.
And sorry, John, before you go down this track, I just want to make it clear, this Building 7 wasn't referred to in the official inquiry, as far as I know.
The 9/11 Commission report failed to talk about it, and took 7 years for an official report of the collapse to come out.
Incredible. So in layman's terms, tell us about it.
Okay, Building 7, the third tower, the Solomon Brothers building, was owned by the same fellow that had just taken over the lease on the Twin Towers, Larry Silverstein. It was a 47-storey tall building that contained many important documents. It was the secret office for the CIA in New York. It had an FBI office. It had the Security Exchange Commission offices as well that had held a lot of important documents around Wall Street fraud, etc., insider trading. And it had many other government groups within that building. And anyway, at 5:20 in the afternoon of 9/11, or September 11 as we know it in Australia, this building fell completely to the ground into its own footprint at free fall speed, at absolute free fall speed for a portion of about 100 feet or 30 or so metres of the collapse.
Now, this is after the other two towers collapsed, yep?
That's right, 5:20 in the afternoon. The other two towers collapsed, 9:10 in the morning.
So we're talking 7 hours afterwards.
Yeah, that's right.
Amazing.
A long, long time afterwards, and we're not really sure why that is. But we do know there was witnesses early in the day that heard massive explosions in the building. Now, this building did receive some damage from the collapsing towers, but it was a full 100 metres, or a full football field away from the actual collapsing buildings, and it suffered some minor damage that was later removed as a possible cause by the investigation into its collapse.
A lot of us might say, well, it was two towers did collapse fairly close, on a football field away, as you say. Possibly that has to contribute to its destruction. Why is it so key to the theories that you're putting forward?
Basically, immediately when you watch this, and I recommend people, if they're just listening now, they can go and have a look at this event now. If you go to ae911truth.org, and you'll see on the right-hand side there's a revolving YouTube video of the building collapsing.
Yeah.
The fact that it collapses at absolute free fall speed is amazing, and it's impossible without removing the material below. Even if we just had the mass of the building without any structural strength, it still can't move that fast because of the conservation of momentum. There must be energy exchange to move mass. Now, if we have a building that's designed to take 3 or 4 times its own weight, turning to dust its speed, this is immediately a problem for anyone that's got any background in science, or just anyone at all that understands that buildings are designed to stand up, not to fall down. Now, obviously, if this could happen, and the official story says this happened due to office fires alone. Now, the fires in this building in particular weren't significant. They were quite small by a standard that you might imagine a towering inferno. They were nothing like a towering inferno. There was small fires on different floors that burn out during the day. And the official story said that one column was heated up enough over a long period of time, which in itself isn't rational because these office fires burn out in certain areas within a certain area within about 20 or 30 minutes. So after a long, long period of heat saturation, this one column gave way, and then the official theory is then the whole building turned to dust. Now, this building contained many, many columns. It was a massive steel-structured building. Never in the history of the world have we ever seen a high-rise building collapse due to fire alone. Now, we had a countdown on the radio that was reported by numerous witnesses. The police were telling people to get back, this building's about to come down. The owner of the building himself, in a PBS special a year or so later, actually said they were going to pull the building down because it was too dangerous and they'd lost too much life already. They didn't want to save it, so we watched it fall. So it's just, it boggles the mind why we didn't hear about it. It must be that whatever happened with that building, people didn't want us to know about, because you can't set a building for demolition in a few hours while it's on fire. That's impossible. Now, this building literally collapses in the centre first, just as a controlled implosion does, and the walls fall in neatly from the sides. You can see the pictures online if you go and search Building 7 or WTC 7 and look for images on Google. You'll see the images of the actual building folded in on itself neatly between two other buildings without damaging significantly the other buildings. Now, how you can make that happen with small office fires, considering it's never happened anywhere in the world and lots of places that have worse building standards than America, straight away, you wonder why this building fell down. And then you have to agree it took 7 years for them to come up with a theory, and the only theory they have is a computer model that we're not allowed access to. We can't even see what the inputs are.
Why, if this was deliberate, what's the motive behind the conspiracy? Because the way I understand it, the central argument of the movement, I suppose, that 9/11 was staged, is that it was to propel the US into war. Is that basically the crux of what you're saying too? Is that what you believe to be the motive?
Well, I think the most reasonable analysis takes us to a position of symbiosis of criminal elements within government and military. For numerous reasons. There was, $4.6 billion made out of the owner of the buildings. There was many documents that were destroyed that were going to cause a lot of high-powered people and a lot of corporations a lot of grief, especially in Building 7. There was a situation where the American empire, first time in history, didn't have another superpower competing with it. It had the opportunity to move forward in the world and really take over the geopolitical strong, important points in the world around the oil in the Caspian Basin, and also geopolitical places like Afghanistan, which are also linked to the transportation of oil from the old republic. There's many reasons, but if we just look back to what they tell us, the people that came to power. Now, anyone that thinks George Bush was in charge on 9/11 obviously hasn't studied their history and haven't looked at the real political reality in Washington at the time. Dick Cheney was really the guy that was in charge of the Bush administration. I think that's quite clear. Now, he was a member with Rumsfeld and Wolfowitz and many other people that came to power with Bush and the Bush administration. He was a part of a group called the Neocons, also known for the Project for the New American Century. Now, this think tank group, not unlike other groups that we hear of, like the Council on Foreign Relations, the Trilateral Commission, etc., these are groups that have great influence on politics in America. Now, they came up with a manifesto 1 year before 9/11 that they said they needed a catalyzing and catastrophic event like a new Pearl Harbor to encourage the American people to spend the trillions of dollars that would be required to create a proper American empire that can control the resources to need to go into the next century.
Look, I want to take you back, John. I want to take you back. We're talking about I want to simplify this for the people that were watching, and as we all were on September 11, when we tuned in and saw those planes flying into the World Trade Centers. I want to know what you believe went on there. Do you believe, for example, that they were terrorists who hijacked the planes?
Okay, well, anyone with a science background doesn't believe anything unless they have the evidence to come up with their analysis of what actually happened. Consequently, we don't really have the information. We don't know those people were on the planes for sure.
So hang on, this is important that I take you through step by step here. So you're even perhaps disputing the fact, the identity, because they were identified at the time, the people who were alleged to have, who were proven, according to the government, to have hijacked those planes. Do you dispute that?
Only because of the lack of transparency in the investigation and other things. But there were certain media organisations that reported many of the hijackers were still alive. Now, let's take it that what happened with the planes is true, and that's what I do. I always defer to the official story if I don't have any clear evidence of another story. So I basically will concede to you that I'll go along with the official story because I don't have any evidence that says otherwise. But what I am very concerned about is how they managed to fly those planes around for nearly 2 hours without intercepts by any American jets. Now, if we look at actually what happened on 9/11, the one that's probably the most obvious is the plane that was heading towards the Pentagon, Flight 77. Now, Flight 77 was known to be a hijack for about 50 minutes. Now, in that 50-minute period, there was plenty of time to get planes in the air to prevent that plane hitting its target. It was heading towards Washington. Now, after the two Twin Towers had already been hit, it was pretty obvious what these planes were going to be used for. Would you agree with that?
Absolutely, absolutely. I mean, okay, so what I guess my mind's racing towards, well, couldn't this just be explained by complete inefficiency? I mean, this was something that they hadn't expected. Couldn't it just be put down to inefficiency?
Well, that's an interesting argument, and that would be fair if there wasn't precedent. But the thing is, they were clearly warned by 11 different individual intelligence agencies of the country, world, that this event was being prepared. They'd run exercises in the prior years at the Pentagon actually being hit by a large passenger jet. So this is on the record, right? So it's definitely not something they weren't thinking about. Now, the argument's been made that they were used to looking outwards and they never expected these planes would be used in such a coordinated way. And the argument they use for the planes not being able to be tracked is